reality television often sells us the image of unstoppable energy, laughter, and endless success. The stars we see on screen are larger than life, personalities that seem untouchable, people who live every day as if it is an adventure. But behind that curtain of fame, there are often struggles and heartbreaks that the public rarely sees. Few stories prove this more than the emotional and heartbreaking tragedy of David Kiley, one of the stars of Diesel Brothers. For years, Diesel Dave has been the smiling, joking, fun-loving face of Discovery's hit series about monster trucks, diesel engines, and over-the-top builds. Alongside his partner Heavy D, he became a household name known for crazy stunts, wild giveaways, and massive custom trucks that defied imagination. But what the cameras didn't always capture was the personal toll, the challenges, the hidden pain, and the tragedies that reshaped his life forever. The story of Diesel Dave is not just about horsepower, fame, or business success. It is about a man who has faced some of life's most crushing blows, both publicly and privately, and how those blows have defined him. It is about the fragile line between joy and heartbreak, between laughing on set and grieving behind closed doors. And it is a story that reveals something important about fame. It does not protect anyone from tragedy. As we unfold this journey, we will see how Diesel Dave went from a small town mechanic to an international television star, only to be forced to confront devastating hardships, legal battles, financial struggles, betrayals, and personal heartbreak. And perhaps most difficult of all, the deep personal tragedies in his family life that continue to echo today. By the end of this story, the man you thought you knew, the smiling giant with the big beard, bigger laugh, and love for diesel engines, will look very different. His story is a reminder that even those who seem to have it all can carry heartbreak that no engine, no truck, and no fame could ever fix. This is the heartbreaking tragedy of Diesel Dave. Early life and rise to fame. David Kiley, better known to fans as Diesel Dave, was not born into fame. Long before television crews followed his every move, he was simply a Utah native with a passion for engines and a knack for humor. From an early age, Kiley was fascinated with mechanics. He worked in garages, tinkered with trucks, and spent countless hours learning the ins and outs of diesel engines. His natural charisma and sense of humor made him memorable, but his mechanical skill was what kept people coming back. That passion eventually led him to meet David Sparks, better known as Heavy D. The two bonded quickly, united by their love of all things diesel. They didn't just fix trucks, they dreamed bigger. Together, they began posting videos of their diesel creations online. Their content quickly caught fire. The combination of outrageous custom builds, wild personalities, and over-the-top giveaways made them stand out. Soon, Discovery Channel came calling and Diesel Brothers was born. The show premiered in 2016 and quickly became a hit. Fans loved the energy, the massive builds, and the chemistry between Heavy D and Diesel Dave. For Diesel Dave especially, his personality became the glue of the show. His jokes, his warmth, and his wild antics made him a fan favorite. On screen, he seemed to embody joy itself, a man living the dream, building monster trucks, traveling the world, and being paid to have fun. But what fans didn't always see was the pressure behind the success. Fame brought expectations. Builds had to get bigger, stunts had to get wilder, and giveaways had to reach more people. Behind the laughter was long hours, financial risk, and the pressure to keep ratings high. And while Diesel Dave's smile rarely faded on screen, he was quietly carrying burdens that no camera could capture. This early rise to fame was exhilarating but also set the stage for the tragedies to come. Because once you're in the spotlight, every mistake, every loss, and every heartbreak becomes amplified. Diesel Dave was no longer just a mechanic, he was a celebrity. And that meant his struggles would no longer be private. The legal battles and financial strain. The first cracks in Diesel Dave's public image didn't come from personal heartbreak, but from the courtroom. In 2016, shortly after the show's debut, the Diesel brothers found themselves at the center of a legal storm. Environmental groups accused them of violating the Clean Air Act, claiming that the custom modifications they made to diesel trucks removed emissions systems and increased pollution. The case dragged on for years, with the government pushing hard against the Diesel brothers brand. Eventually, a federal judge ruled against them, imposing fines of nearly $50,000. For fans, it was shocking. The fun-loving guys who built outrageous trucks were suddenly painted as reckless lawbreakers. For Diesel Dave, who prided himself on being a family man and role model, the judgment was devastating. Financially, the penalties were crushing. While the show was successful, fines of that magnitude threatened to destabilize the entire business. The team had to fight not only to pay what they owed, but also to protect their brand's reputation. Diesel Dave, often seen laughing and joking, was forced to confront the grim reality of bankruptcy threats and financial ruin. This legal battle was more than just a fine. It was a heavy weight on his shoulders. Fans expected the same Diesel Dave, the one who laughed through everything. But behind the scenes, he was dealing with lawyers, accountants, and endless stress. For a man who built his career on joy, the endless grind of legal battles was soul-crushing. The financial strain also put pressure on his relationships and his personal life. Being on television while facing the possibility of losing everything created a dual reality. On one side, he was entertaining millions. On the other, he was lying awake at night wondering if his empire was about to collapse. And yet, Diesel Dave pushed on. He showed up, filmed, laughed, and carried on with the show. But the toll was real. This was the first taste of tragedy for a man who seemed untouchable, and it set the stage for even more painful struggles to come. Family and personal struggles. For all his fame and recognition, Diesel Dave has always been quick to say that his most important role is not as a television star, but as a husband and father. Family has always been central to who he is. When cameras turned off, he was not Diesel Dave the celebrity. He was David Kiley, a man trying to raise his children with love and teach them the values he grew up with. Yet it is often within family life that the most profound struggles occur. And for Diesel Dave, the contrast between public success and private difficulty could not have been sharper. Raising a family while being constantly in the spotlight was never easy. Fame demands time for filming appearances, and endless promotion. The work that brought him fame also took him away from home, and while his children admired what he did, they also needed him as a father. Balancing the two worlds was an ongoing battle, and the strain showed. Diesel Dave himself admitted in interviews that the hardest part of his career was missing moments at home. Birthdays, school events, and simple family dinners. Then there was the added weight of financial stress caused by the legal battles. When a family is suddenly staring down fines in the hundreds of thousands, the pressure does not stay confined to lawyers' offices. It trickles into the household. Tension builds. Choices become harder. Every purchase, every plan for the future carries the shadow of what might happen if the finances collapse. For a man trying to be strong for his wife and children, Diesel Dave carried a burden few could imagine. His faith, however, kept him grounded. As a devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Diesel Dave leaned on spirituality in moments of doubt. His belief in family resilience and divine purpose gave him strength, but even faith could not erase the sting of personal trials. When tragedies struck closer to home, his resilience was tested in ways that no lawsuit or business challenge could compare to. Family is supposed to be a refuge, a place of safety when the world feels overwhelming. For Diesel Dave, it was both his greatest comfort and, at times, his deepest source of pain. Because when tragedy reached into his home, it left scars that no fame, no truck, and no amount of laughter could ever repair. The tragedy of loss. Every person, no matter how strong or outwardly joyful, eventually encounters loss. For Diesel Dave, loss struck in a way that cut to the core of his identity as a husband and father. In a candid moment that shocked fans, Diesel Dave revealed the tragedy of losing a child. Few things in life compare to the heartbreak of such a loss. It is the kind of pain that does not fade with time, the kind of grief that reshapes the way a person sees the world. For a man known for his booming laughter and big personality, the tragedy was devastating. Friends close to him spoke about how the usually upbeat Diesel Dave fell silent, retreating from the public eye to process the unimaginable. Losing a child is not something that can be explained. It is a wound that words cannot heal. For Diesel Dave and his family, the heartbreak was overwhelming. Fans of Diesel Brothers were used to seeing joy, excitement, and celebration. Giveaways of giant diesel trucks, crazy stunts, and fun with friends dominated the screen. But off camera, Diesel Dave and his wife were navigating the most painful chapter of their lives. They leaned on faith, on each other, and on the support of family and community. Yet the sadness lingered. Even in later years, when Diesel Dave spoke about the tragedy, his voice carried the weight of someone who had lived through something no parent should endure. The tragedy reshaped him. It gave him a new perspective on what truly mattered. Trucks, fame, money, all of it seemed smaller in the shadow of personal loss. He spoke more often about the importance of cherishing time with loved ones, of making memories, of valuing life not for what you can buy, but for who you can hold close. The loss also fueled his drive to connect with fans more honestly, showing that behind the television personality was a real human being who had suffered, endured, and continued forward. The tragedy of loss marked a turning point in Diesel Dave's story. It transformed him from a reality star into something deeper, a man carrying grief with courage, determined to use his platform not only for entertainment but to remind others of life's fragility. His heartbreak, though deeply personal, became a reminder to millions that no one, not even celebrities, are safe from life's cruelest turns. Public image viz private pain. For audiences, Diesel Dave is the life of the party. He is the bearded joker, the one who can make people laugh even when engines fail or builds run late. On television, he embodies joy. But behind every laugh, there is often a story the camera cannot see. Public image and private pain are rarely the same, and for Diesel Dave, this gap grew wider with each passing year. The demands of reality television require constant positivity. Producers expect energy, excitement, and humor in every scene. Audiences expect the same Diesel Dave every week, the man who never seems to tire, who always has a joke, who never lets anything get him down. But maintaining that image while carrying personal grief was exhausting. After the tragedy of losing a child, after financial and legal battles, and after countless pressures on his personal life, Diesel Dave was not always the man audiences saw. Privately, he wrestled with anxiety and fatigue. He faced sleepless nights worrying about the future of his business and his family. He endured moments of despair that could not be shared publicly. And yet, when the cameras rolled, he turned it on again. The smile, the laugh, the larger-than-life energy. For many fans, this made him relatable, even if they did not know the full story. Because so many people wear masks every day, hiding struggles while projecting strength. Diesel Dave's mask was simply bigger and more visible because of television. The divide between public image and private pain can take a toll. Psychologists often describe the strain of performing happiness as emotionally draining. For Diesel Dave, the strain was amplified by the fact that millions were watching. He had to be the person people expected him to be, even when his heart was breaking. It is a cruel paradox. The more famous you are for being happy, the harder it is to admit you are hurting. And yet, through his actions and words, Diesel Dave occasionally let glimpses of the truth slip through. In interviews, he admitted that fame had its downsides. That life was not always the highlight real fans believed it to be. These moments of vulnerability endeared him even more to those who admired him. They showed that beneath the public image was a man who struggled, who suffered, and who carried pain that could not always be hidden. Faith, resilience, and coping. In the face of tragedy, how does one continue? For Diesel Dave, the answer lay in faith, resilience, and the determination to keep moving forward. His identity as a family man and his commitment to his beliefs became the foundation on which he rebuilt after loss. Faith played the most significant role. As a devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Diesel Dave turned to prayer, scripture, and community support during his darkest days. In times of grief, he spoke openly about relying on God to carry him through, acknowledging that some burdens are too heavy for one person to bear alone. This spiritual foundation did not erase the pain, but it gave him a compass to navigate it. Resilience was the next ingredient. Resilience does not mean the absence of pain. It means finding ways to continue in spite of it. Diesel Dave channeled his grief into his work, using trucks and television not as distractions, but as outlets. He poured himself into building, into giving back to fans, into trying to make others smile even when he himself was struggling. Resilience became his way of honoring what he had lost by refusing to collapse under the weight of sorrow. Coping also required honesty. Over time, Diesel Dave began sharing more about his personal struggles, speaking about the realities of loss and hardship. For fans, these moments of honesty were powerful. They revealed a side of him that went beyond entertainment. He was not just a man who built monster trucks. He was a man who had lived through devastation and had chosen to keep going. His willingness to open up inspired many who faced their own struggles, showing them that pain is universal. But so is resilience. Even today, Diesel Dave's story is not defined only by tragedy. It is defined by how he responded to tragedy. He leaned on faith, embraced resilience, and found ways to cope that allowed him to continue being a father, a husband, a friend, and a public figure. His laughter still echoes, but now it carries depth. It is not the laugh of a man untouched by pain. It is the laugh of a man who has endured it and chosen to keep smiling anyway. The legacy of Diesel Dave's story. When people look back on Diesel Dave's journey, it is tempting to see it only through the lens of entertainment. After all, Diesel Brothers was a show about big trucks, bigger personalities, and the wild adventures of a group of friends living their dream. But the deeper legacy of Diesel Dave's story goes far beyond diesel engines and television fame. His life represents something larger: the resilience of the human spirit, the fragility of family, and the reminder that tragedy can strike even in the most unexpected places. For fans, Diesel Dave's openness about his struggles left an impact that extended well beyond television. Many reality stars hide their pain, carefully curating an image of perfection that can feel unattainable to ordinary people. But when Diesel Dave began to speak honestly about loss, grief, and hardship, he became more than just a celebrity. He became a symbol of strength through vulnerability. His willingness to admit that he was hurting resonated with fans who were hurting themselves. Messages poured in from viewers who had lost loved ones, who had faced financial ruin, or who had struggled to reconcile public smiles with private pain. His tragedy created a connection, proving that fame does not isolate someone from the challenges of ordinary life. The legacy also stretches into lessons about priorities. Diesel Dave himself often reflected that fame and money are fleeting, that what truly matters are the people closest to you. Trucks can break, shows can end, money can disappear, but family, faith, and resilience endure. That perspective, shaped by tragedy, gave fans a lesson far more valuable than any monster truck giveaway. It reminded people that no matter how big life seems, it is the small moments, family dinners, children's laughter, moments of honesty, that truly define us. From a cultural perspective, Diesel Dave's story also challenges the illusion of celebrity invincibility. Too often we assume those in the spotlight are immune to the pain we face. But his story shows the opposite. Fame cannot shield you from grief, nor can success erase loss. In fact, public life often magnifies private suffering, making resilience even more remarkable. The legacy of Diesel Dave is not one of tragedy alone, but of endurance. He faced heartbreak, financial ruin, and unimaginable loss, yet he continues to inspire with his laughter, his faith, and his commitment to family. That is why his story is remembered, not only for the tragedy he endured, but for the way he chose to live after it. Brotherhood with Heavy D and the Diesel family. One of the strongest constants in Diesel Dave's life has been his partnership with Heavy D. Their bond is more than just business. It is brotherhood. Through the highest highs of television success and the lowest lows of legal battles and personal grief, Heavy D has often been the steady presence at Diesel Dave's side. Fans see the jokes and the banter on screen, but behind the cameras, their friendship has been a source of strength. Heavy D has spoken about how loss and hardship have changed his friend, but also about how proud he is of Diesel Dave's resilience. The Diesel Brothers brand may have started as entertainment, but for Diesel Dave it became a family of support, both from Heavy D and the crew who stuck by him. That loyalty has been a lifeline when tragedy threatened to overwhelm him. Life after the spotlight and redefining purpose. As television fame cooled and the show's intensity slowed, Diesel Dave began to reflect on life beyond the cameras. For years, his identity was tied to the Diesel Brothers brand, but personal tragedy forced him to consider a deeper purpose. He has since leaned more into motivational speaking, faith-based events, and spending intentional time with his family. Trucks and stunts still play a role in his life, but they no longer define it entirely. Instead, Diesel Dave has spoken about wanting to inspire others who face grief, showing that survival and even joy are possible after devastation. This quieter chapter of his life may not grab headlines the way monster truck giveaways once did, but it carries a deeper meaning that resilience is not about staying in the spotlight. It is about living fully, with gratitude, even after heartbreak. Diesel Dave's story is a reminder that reality TV only shows part of the truth. On screen, he was the jokester with the booming laugh, a man who seemed to have everything: fame, money, and the freedom to build the wildest trucks imaginable. But behind the cameras, his life has been scarred by struggles that fame could never protect him from. The massive Clean Air Act lawsuit nearly destroyed the Diesel Brothers brand, forcing him to confront bankruptcy, level fines, and years of public scrutiny. At home, the weight of financial stress pressed against his role as husband and father, stretching him thin between work and family. The deepest tragedy, however, was the loss of a child, a heartbreak so profound it reshaped every part of his life. For a man whose identity was built on laughter, that grief was devastating. Yet he chose not to hide forever. Instead, Diesel Dave leaned into faith, resilience, and honesty, slowly revealing that the man fans saw on screen also carried invisible wounds. His journey is not just about hardship, but about endurance. Even through unimaginable loss, he has found a way to keep going, living proof that resilience is forged not in success, but in surviving heartbreak. The story of Diesel Dave is both inspiring and heartbreaking. To millions of viewers, he is a beloved reality star, a man whose energy and humor brought joy through television screens. But behind the engines, behind the giveaways, and behind the laughter is a man who has endured struggles that few could imagine. From financial strain and legal battles to the unimaginable tragedy of losing a child, Diesel Dave has lived through storms that would break many people. And yet he continues. He shows up. He laughs. He builds. He reminds fans that life is not about avoiding tragedy, but about facing it with courage. His story is not one of perfection. It is one of perseverance. The tragedy of Diesel Dave is heartbreaking because it shows us that even those who seem to live larger than life existences are vulnerable. No one is immune to grief. No one is protected from loss. And yet, his story is also hopeful. It demonstrates that even after devastating tragedy, life can continue with meaning. Faith, family, and resilience can provide a path forward, even when the road feels impossible. For fans, the lesson is clear. What we see on television is only part of the story. Behind every public figure is a private life filled with triumphs and heartbreaks. By sharing his story, Diesel Dave bridges that gap, reminding us that celebrities are human, carrying burdens we may never fully see. The heartbreaking tragedy of Diesel Dave is not just his. It belongs to everyone who has suffered loss, who has faced battles behind closed doors, who has worn a smile in public while grieving in private. His story resonates because it is universal. It is a story of love, loss, resilience, and the courage to keep living. And so when we think of Diesel Dave, we should remember more than the man who loved trucks and laughter. We should remember the man who faced heartbreak, who leaned on faith, who carried on despite unimaginable pain. His tragedy is heartbreaking, but his resilience is inspiring. And in the end, that balance between heartbreak and hope is what makes his story worth telling.